Good afternoon, Core Nation. Hey, it's Kendra Cooke here at the headquarters in Charlotte, and we have a hot topic today. Because all of us have been home during the COVID and the pandemic and everything, and now most of us are back to work. Some of us still aren't. A lot of our teams still have some folks working remotely, but I thought it was probably perfect timing for us to talk about teams because unfortunately, I would say about 50% of our clients are understaffed. And so when we get them in the core, a lot of times, whether they come in level 1 or level 2 or level 3, it's when do I hire, who do I hire, how do I find these people? And so that's kind of what the core helps with. But the benefit of being part of the core is we have some partnerships. Just like we teach our realtors and lenders to have partnerships, we have a partnership with our guests today. And we're going to talk about why you use the DISC test, how it benefits you, a lot of things around DISC testing. And so I want to introduce our special guest today, Mr. Minesh Baxi. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate that tremendously, Kendra. And I know you all are working hard and people are really trying to manage with all the limited resources they have. So I'm proud of each and every one of you on the call. You are an achiever, and I'm privileged to be part of your team here.
Well, we're glad to have you. And I said good morning, so that just goes to show you how understaffed I am. I don't even know if it's daytime or nighttime half the time I'm in here. I feel like I'm spending the night here because we are working on a big event coming up. So I've just been pounding the phones all day. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's already 3:30. So it's not morning, it's afternoon. But to jump in and get started, I think a couple things I want to start out with is give you a few tips around what I feel like is probably best for hiring. And then we're going to jump into Minesh because Minesh is so passionate about the DISC test and he knows it inside and out. So to give you guys a quick rundown, we at the core have a metric. So if you join us or you're already part of us and you're in the process of hiring or you need to hire, we have a metric. How many closings per person that you hire, who you hire first, how you train them the first 90 days on the job, what do they take off your plate as a team leader first. And I think that that's where most of our issues in hiring comes. We wait till it's too late. We're drowning, the water's already right here. And then the first person that comes down the pike, if they're breathing, we just hire them, right? We don't know what their skills are. We don't know what their DISC test is. When we talk about DISC testing, some people may be sitting here saying, what the crap is a DISC? So that's where we're going to jump in about because Minesh is super, super passionate about the DISC. So explain, how did you figure out that this was the big key to hiring and why are you so passionate about it?
Well, thank you very much. And before I get started, I want to mention to you, I'm the author of the book, Stop Hiring Losers. And you can actually download this book as an ebook for free at stophiringlosers.com.
Perfect.
So here is what I will tell you my story a little bit because I think this will help you understand. Now, before I go further, let me remind you, my accent is not from Tennessee, Cornelius, or any of these places. My accent is from India. I was born in a city called Agra, which is famous for Taj Mahal, which coincidentally I did visit just before the COVID shut it down. Anyway, so here is what it is. My journey was very interesting. I was a computer programmer for 12 years. I have a bachelor's in electrical engineering and a master's in systems engineering and management. And I was a geek, so to speak, except I didn't like my job. In fact, the reason I mentioned the word losers, because a lot of people say, Minesh, why do you say losers? Well, if you're assembling a winning team, you have to be aware that you have the right people in the right spot. Now, I think I'm a great guy, but if you put me across with LeBron James in basketball, you got the wrong person. I'm in that understanding a loser on that team. You understand where I'm coming from now. So the reason I'm mentioning that very simply is I'm a people guy. I love talking to people like most of the people on this call as well. And I want to be around people. So I was one of those guys who did not want to sit at the desk 8 hours a day. And I was waiting for that coffee break. Hey, can I go to the fountain now and talk to somebody? I want to be on the phone with somebody. I want to talk to somebody, not just sit at my desk program all day. Now, here's the part that I want to make sure that you understand. I had the right resume. I had all the right things. I came from a very prestigious university in India, did really well in school. And also I had the right skills. Let me just mention that to you. So most people, when they hire, are looking at the resume. They're looking at maybe some skills sometimes. They're looking at the interview presentation. I was great in all of that. but I was the wrong person for the job. What I was trying to tell you is the loser on the team. And I work for some good companies like GE, and they never went through this process. I was a computer programmer trapped in my job for 12 years. So the main reason I'm mentioning all of that is the candidates who are applying for the job for you, for the position that you have advertised, they may not know about themselves either. And guess what happens? They apply for a job that they may not be a good fit. And because they are able to communicate well, their resume looks good, they had a couple of good referrals, and guess what happens? You immediately hire that person without doing what I now call obviously a good step in the process, which is DISC assessment. And if somebody had taken my DISC assessment before they hired me for that job, or even before I went into college for the kind of engineering degree, etc., that I went for, they would have already told me, Minesh, you're not the person who is going to be sitting at a desk programming all day long. You're the person who should have a different job description. And that's the key. If you are hiring people based on what you already know about them through resume skills, etc., and you don't know their DISC profile, you might be hiring the wrong person for the job. And here's what happens. They get frustrated over a time period. You get frustrated over a time period. And you are wondering, what's wrong? This person had everything I wanted. So for the last 20 years, and the moment I understood about DISC, I'm like, wow, why did anybody not show me this before? I would have saved my time in my life. And that's why my daughter is almost 17. She took her DISC assessment 4 years ago because I wanted to make sure, because I homeschool my children as well, I wanted to make sure that I'm teaching her the right things that she needs in the way that she understands. Otherwise, I would be, not a good parent in that respect. And especially when I'm trying to help other people in hiring, I want to make sure that when looking at the DISC report, you have the right person. So right. I don't want you to make the wrong decision. I want you to have the right person in the right spot on your team. And that's why I'm so passionate about this. And I'll tell you what, it has worked out very well for my clients, because now when they hire somebody, they have a lot better understanding of the strengths and the weakness, the communication style, how to motivate them, how to manage them, and you become a better manager and employee in that process. So I hope that helps you in understanding, Kendra.
Yeah, so what I heard there was even if big companies aren't doing it, a lot of smaller business owners or independent contractors, such as a realtor myself, may not know that that is even out there. And I know there's tons of books and there's free assessment, but I want to talk about a short summary, really short, like what does the DISC stand for? And then I got a couple more questions. So let's start there. What's a short summary of what DISC actually stands for? I know it's DISC. I know the short version, but give us a quick version, overview of that.
The simplest way I will tell you, this was actually created as a model, a 4-point model by William Marston. In fact, they made a movie about him, and you may know about William Marston in a very different way. He created the character called Wonder Woman. So if you have seen Wonder Woman and you have seen the movie or at least heard about it, he's the person who created that character. Very interesting person. So he created this model called DISC. What does that really mean? Here is what it is. It's a language to help understand more about you and other people. And it's just like if you go into a place where you don't know the language. Let's say I don't know Spanish. I go down to Florida, Miami, and the driver talks to me in Spanish, right? I don't know the language. It's hard to communicate with that person. So what happens is once you understand the language this model is about, you are in a much better spot to understand yourself and other people. So let's talk about what D is. D stands for dominance. This is the simplest answer would be Rick Ruby. I'm sure you all know who Rick Ruby is. This is a man who wants results quickly. He wants to take charge. He's very direct. And the best part is what? He is taking risk. He's the one who is going to be in the front. Now, here is a myth that people have. And that is that a high D, which is the person who has high score on a D, is automatically a salesperson. No, it's not the case. And I'll talk about that in a minute later. So the first thing is this person outgoing, taking charge, very direct? If that's the case, that person is a dominant person. I is influencing. This is the warm, bubbly, friendly, life of the party. Look at me, look at me. Yes, me too, exactly. And look at me, I love getting that attention. But what happens? I don't hear very well, right? I'm selective in my listening. and I'm extremely disorganized, naturally speaking, right? So what ends up happening, somebody like me who was a high I, or who still is, ends up in a programming job where organizing and following steps is critical. Quality control of testing all the programs is critical. Wrong person for the job, right? The S, steadiness. This is the person who is relatively calm, wants to get along with people, does not like change too much. Now, you need these people because they are very loyal. They'll stay with you. My wife is a high S in that respect. She will stand next to me, helping me. I was doing a video shoot on Friday. She spent all the day with me, taking care of me. This is the person you need on your team for sure. Okay. And the last person is a C, compliant. This person is more aloof. This is the person who wants details. This is the person who wants information. He wants to make sure, is there a rule to be followed? And if there is, we better follow correctly. Like in my wife's case, I'm a terrible cook, right? And my wife is a great cook. She's Chinese, wasn't brought up in India like I was. I like Indian food. And I'll tell you the simple example. So I give her the recipe. She cooks fantastic. And I will butcher the same recipe. Why? I don't follow the instruction exactly as given. I'm too impatient. Yesterday, she had made something for me which was perfect. And then I said, I was in a rush. I was like, let me go make it. And guess what? It was a disaster. All I want you to know is giving the person the right information, right, is very important. But you also know, can they use the right information in the way that you need them to do? So D people are looking for results. I is looking for friendliness, somebody to listen to, somebody who should listen to them, I should say. S is somebody who wants to get along with people, just make everybody feel comfortable. S, and that is the S, steadiness. C is somebody who wants to make sure there is rules, procedures to be followed, and they want to make sure those are being followed exactly. Does that give you a quick sense about it?
Yeah, that's perfect. So when we're talking about DISC like that, and I know for me, I get confused on there's a natural state and an adapted state. And mine are a little different. There's some gaps in there, and I raise my hand because I can honestly tell you when I took my DISC test the first time when I got in the Corps, it is completely different from where I am right now. And I think a lot of that might be because my job changed, so I answer the questions different. Because when I was a dominant and I was a driver and all these things that we call the D, the rainmaker and all of that, I think I was just a little more dominant in my direction and my tone and the way I handled things. Now, because of being a full-time coach, I think I'm more of an influencer, and I think I do want to be the life of the party, and I can be the hammer, but I'd rather not. If I can get to the same solution at the end without being the dominant, I'm okay with that. But I have this weird thing in my brain that I'm very high C. So if you work for me, there's a checklist for everything. There's a bottom shelf down there, and everything's in a manual. I have a policy and procedure manual for everything. I have a checklist for everything, and no birthday gets uncovered, and I'm just really super organized and super compliant. And so Rick says, you're the best employee because you can sell, but then you follow the rules on the ops side. So nobody really doesn't like me here. I'm a good employee, I'm a good ops person, but I'm a good salesperson too. So can you just allude to the difference in the adaptable and the natural state? Just real quick little difference if there's somebody on here that took the test recently when they got in the Corps and they're trying to figure it out too.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So I'll give you a quick example. So I had a client who was a local in Michigan, that's where I'm right now, a chiropractor, and we took his DISC assessment and we found the natural style. Now, natural style is who you are. This is who you are. Adapted is who you are trying to be to fit in that environment. So imagine like a rubber band, right? A rubber band in a natural state and a rubber band when you are stretching.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
A rubber band adapted style can only handle so much, right? So I looked at his profile. I saw a big gap between the natural and adapted style. So I said, hey, you feel stressed. You feel that you are like too much, like I'm doing so many things that I really can't feel like I'm enjoying it. He's like, Minesh, I don't feel any stress. I said, let me ask you a question. What happens once you go home? He's like, Minesh, I don't want anybody to talk to me. So here is the chiropractor. who is naturally more of a C, but all day long he's with people and he has to be more of an I, right? And because he has used up all his emotional energy in being something he is not, guess what happens? He's emotionally drained out. Yep. Yes, he's exhausted by the end of the day. When he gets home, he doesn't have any availability of connecting with other people. So if you are somebody who is feeling stressed out at the end of the day because you are doing the things that are not natural to you, like in my case, I could do this kind of interview 8 hours a day. Why? This is very natural for me. This is something which I can do because I enjoy it. Now, interestingly enough, you may not know this, Rick enjoys this as well, which is why he's on the center of the stage. He likes that, okay? But the main thing which I want to bring to your attention is natural style is who you are, and adapted is somebody you are trying to adjust in the environment. So what is the ideal? The ideal is they are both the same. The ideal is they are both the same. And if they are the same, then you are naturally fitting in that environment. If they are not the same and there is enough gap, and if you talk to me later, I can explain the gap to you, then you have to start realizing that there are stresses happening. And here is one of the reasons some people say, Minesh, I have this employee for a long time, and I hope Hunter doesn't mind me saying this. Hunter was, actually, I was doing an assessment for Hunter's assistant. And so I was going through the assessment on the phone with Hunter, and I was explaining his executive assistant's situation. And I said, there's a lot of gap between natural and adapted style. I think your assistant is going through some stress. He says, Minesh, interestingly enough, she's in this conversation. I couldn't see, right? He was on the phone. This is before the Zoom era. And I didn't know. She said, she's right here. She's my right-hand person. She does a great job. I don't think this is the case. I said, well, the proof is in the pudding. Let's ask your assistant how she feels. Is she stressed out? And she turned around to Hunter and said, Minesh is right. Now, this was somebody who worked with Hunter, but Hunter could not notice it, but the report caught it.
Yeah.
So you might have some people on your team who might be stressed right now, and they're trying to adjust to the environment. And you as the employer, you as the manager, you want to know early enough, because if that keeps going on for a long time, you might lose a good employee that if you had learned a little bit about tweaking the role, help them a little bit along, you could have kept that employee for a much longer time period.
So does that kind of mean that we're manipulating the system when we're when we're taking the test? Because I don't know. I'm just wondering, is there a way to manipulate it to be who you want to be in the position? Just a curiosity. That's just a personal question.
Good point. So here is what most people think that they could. Now, again, obviously, nothing is going to be 100% foolproof. And this actually brings me to the point that the assessment that I use, that assessment has been validated for hiring. Okay, so most of them are not. There are a lot of things on the marketplace, but they are not really statistically validated. But yes, people can try to fool the system, but there are enough cross checks in the system behind that the risk report might come back to me looking really weird, and that will tell me, okay, this person is trying to really be everything to everybody, and hence this is not a person who is paying attention to what they are. They're just trying to manipulate the system, and then you know it. So that then you can have a straight conversation with the person, and that happens very rarely, by the way. And most people, they're honest enough to answer the questions the way they are. And if they don't guess too much, they don't analyze too much, they just put in the right thing, whatever, right away. It usually is people read the first page and they're like, how did you nail it, right? Yeah. But that's just because it has been done for millions of people for the last 30 years.
Yeah, no, I agree. And listen, before we keep going, I know we're usually off here in 30 minutes, and I've been asking my own questions. So I just want to remind the listeners, if you have a question, post it over in the chat so I make sure I get your question answered. I'm just asking my own questions around. I'm just trying to keep the conversation going. But so I have one more question, and then I know I would ask you one more question. So if you have, you test all of my employees here before I hire. So we rely heavily, everyone in this company gets tested by Minesh. Now, prior to coming to the core, Minesh also tested my team. And there were times when he's like, no, you don't hire that person. And guess what I did? Yes, yes, yes. I hired him because I didn't have another candidate. And every time it bit me in the tail end, Minesh was correct. So if you're listening to this, I'm telling you, spend a little bit of money, the investment. You will be so, so happy that you did. And I'm going to let Minesh tell you how he does it a little different right before we get off of here. But I have one more question for you personally. So, you know, a lot of times when I'm analyzing these tests as they come back on my employees, and I'll have like somebody who has a 99, let's say a D, and then you know, everything else kind of drops down from there. And I'm like, okay, well, that, you know, they're a dominant. But then you get someone that has like 75 is the highest one they have. And then everything else is like a 40 or a 50. Should that tell me anything? Because I've seen the highs and I've seen the lower. What's that gap that I'm seeing, and what's going on with that? I'm just curious.
Well, good question. So here's what you have to remember. If the person is a high I, and I'm using high I because that's usually the easiest person to spot. If their high I number, which means their I number on a scale of 0 to 100 is 80, 90, 100, guess what? You can spot that person a mile away. A mile away. You are in the same room going to a networking event, right? And you see this person talking. And I'll give you one quick example here. This is before, obviously, we turned into Amazon shoppers, right? So I used to go to Barnes & Noble on a regular basis. As you know, Kendra, I published 9 different books. And I would go in the morning on a Sunday at Barnes & Noble, sit in their coffee area, doing some research, writing, etc., right? And I remember one specific time on a Sunday, this one lady was talking so loudly, which is just not done in that coffee area, right? People are sitting quietly, reading, researching something, right? And this lady was totally unaware. I don't have to think too much about it. I can tell you that lady was a super high I because she was unaware that anybody else is out there. All she was like, hey, I'm the only one here. So the higher the number, there are 2 things happening. Number 1 is they are the easiest to spot.
Okay.
Number 2 is they are less flexible.
Okay.
Less flexible. So I'm always cautious about hiring somebody as a C, for example. If the C number is going above 80, that person could take too long to take action. They want everything done right.
Okay.
And if you are in a fast-paced environment, that could be a challenge.
Oh, that is great. That's great information. I'm going to go back and look at all my people who we all, a bunch of us took recent tests. I'm going to have to go revisit those. All right. So as we wind down, we have put Minesh's information about his book on here, and he's going to give you a direct phone number. So if you're listening to this, we're going to get contact information for him. It will be in the chat, so you can write it down as well. But my last question is, excuse me, I know you go an extra step. So being part of the core, they get a benefit of if they want to have you screen 2 employees before they make an offer. And it's not just they take the test and you send us the results. You spend some time with us saying, what's this position look like? What are their main jobs going to be? Yes, they're a great candidate, or you might struggle here, or this is a red flag for me. So just quick scenario, what do they get if they come with you and do these DISC tests with you that they wouldn't get if they just get a free one online somewhere?
Very good point. So the first part is, I don't know what those reports are actually, what you paid for, right? And that's really the key. And if somebody wants more information, I can send you that. But let's talk about the simple part of working here. Number 1, I knew Rick before he started the core, and I know all the RP1, RP2, LP1, LP2, and all these roles that you have in the mortgage and real estate industry. Also, over the last 20 years, I know which position needs what kind of DISC assessment. You know what I'm talking about?
Sure.
Right? So you show me, and I will immediately tell you, okay, is this within the ballpark, or you are really taking a chance, right? And I know it's not easy to hear that. Like yesterday, I was talking to a realtor. Minesh, I really want to hire this person. I said, well, this is a challenge you're going to run into. She didn't like my answer at all. But my job is to give you the best answer, right? But the other part is I'm doing 2 things for people nowadays, which I was doing only one of them. There is what I do now is because some people are very busy. It's like, Minesh, can you just give me a bottom line? And maybe they can't get on my calendar right away, right? And I can't get on their calendar right away. We are all so busy. So what I do is I record a 2-minute video clip on the report, and they can see the video with the pages and the scores because I use an app called Loom, Loom, which actually shows you those numbers, and I tell you what those numbers mean. And I go through 3 key pages in those reports. So in 2 minutes, you have at least some understanding of what that looks like, right?
Okay.
And if after that you are like, no, Minesh, I need to talk to you more, great. We can get on a phone call and do that. There is a third thing which you have a number of people that I recommend you should do, and I do that for people. If they have more people, I'll do it for free, just quickly enough. I plot everybody on a wheel that you are looking at. If you have a team of 8 people, right? So like Stuart just now asked me to do assessments for so many people on his team. So what I will take is all their information, put it on one wheel, and very quickly I can tell you who is in the right role or not. Wow. And if you're comparing 2 or 3 more employees, I can show you on the wheel, and we can see the differences between the employees and immediately pick the one that is more likely a fit, which is why when you have only one candidate, it makes your job and my job harder, because it's pretty much going to be difficult for me to tell you yes and no, just because there might be some challenges you might run into. If you have 2 candidates, at least we have some comparison to do, which makes our job a lot easier. That's what I recommend for most people.
Love that. So give us a quick rundown. If they want to find you on the web, what's the web address?
StopHiringLosers.com. Okay.
Fantastic. StopHiringLosers.com. If you want to talk to Minesh about the DISC test profile, is there a direct phone number if somebody wanted to reach out?
Oh, absolutely. 248-866-0063. And Marvin or somebody can put that in the chat as well. I'm very accessible.
Yes,
I mean, it's like a family for me. You know what I'm saying? We are friends, we are family, you know? So please feel free to call me, ask me any questions. I'm here to support you, because I understand the challenge you run into when you spend so much time, so much money trying to hire the right person and doesn't work out. I don't want you to go through that frustration. Absolutely. And the last point I will just give you is, a realtor called me up one day. He's like, Minesh, I was trying to find your number because I want to refer you. He said, do you remember me? I said, I remember you. He says, Minesh, 7 years ago, you did a DISC assessment for my candidate, and that person is still here. That's what I want to hear.
That's awesome. I could also give a testimonial for you. I had not tested someone when I'd hired him before I came to the Corps, shortly there before. And when I got into the Corps in 2005, I had her tested with you, and you said, she's loyal, she's going to be with you a long time. And she was with me until the day I sold my business and moved to Charlotte. So she spent 15 years with me and ran my team and is like a sister to me. We were just born from 2 different mamas. But listen, I would not have had the success I had because you told me all of her strengths and I played to those. So I know we went a little longer than we usually do today, but the truth of the matter is this is a real struggle that we have in the Corps. Most of us are very good salespeople. We're not really good managers. So as Minesh says, when you make a bad hire, it costs you a ton of money. It costs you a ton of time and usually frustration if you have other people on your team. When you make a bad hire, you bring a cancer in and you got to deal with it, and then you got to get it out, and it's just not fun for anyone. You just have a big struggle. So I want to highly, highly encourage you, check them notes. If you want Minesh's number, if you're watching this and you're not part of the Corps and you want to learn more about coaching, visit us on the World Wide Web at thecorpstraining.com. And Minesh, thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate your relationship with us, and I'll see you again soon, okay? Take care. Bye, guys. Thanks for joining us.